You've been carefully vetting this and not making a decision about it, though, for the better part of 5 years, and the situation has gone from, horrendous to even more horrendous. And at the same time, you keep saying that you haven't made any decision, you're not at a decision point.
Right.
Why not? I mean, I don't know if you've been seeing what people have been writing or saying over the course of the past couple of days, but there have been some really, really devastating columns by foreign policy experts and former officials in this administration about a lack of coherent policy here. I mean, the latest one today says that the U.S. policy, as well as the rest of the West, is morally bankrupt, and that Aleppo is the new Srebrenica or Sarajevo.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that? I mean, why aren't you at a decision point?
We are at decision points, Matt. We're at a decision point in terms of trying to get to a ceasefire. We're certainly at a decision point where we need to get the humanitarian access and aid to people that are in need. That's why we're going to Munich tomorrow. We were at a decision point in December when the UN Security Council passed a resolution, 2254, which codified the Vienna peace process and mandated that ceasefire and mandated that humanitarian access, which still hasn't occurred. Your question presupposes the idea that a safe zone, buffer zone, no-fly zone is the antidote, is the right answer. I can assure you that we have looked at it from all different sides across the interagency, and that if it was believed to be the antidote that some say it is, we probably would have executed it by now. But there are legitimate concerns about the ultimate effectiveness of those kinds of zones. Now, that doesn't mean that in some iteration going forward it could still be considered a viable option. I'm not ruling anything in or out today. I'm just saying that we have looked at it very, very hard, very, very stringently, and have decided thus far that it isn't the antidote that some say it would be. What is, clearly, is a ceasefire,
yeah,
when nobody's being barrel bombed.
Right, but that requires the cooperation of countries who don't seem like they want to cooperate. The discarded option, this one that you say has been decided against, is something that could be done with difficulty, but unilaterally. It would be something that you and the Turks, who have been pushing for this for 4 years, could do just by yourselves and perhaps with some NATO assistance. Your solution, the one that you're pushing now, ceasefire, the humanitarian aid, requires the agreement of Russia, which you haven't gotten so far, Iran, which you haven't gotten, so even though they sign on to the principle of it, what's happening on the ground belies their interest in it, and the Assad regime itself. Plus, I think there are questions about whether the rebels that are being backed by the Turks and the Saudis are really interested in the ceasefire.
Okay, so there's a lot there. Not one question, but I think I know what you're trying to drive at. Yeah. First of all, it hasn't been discarded as an idea. As I said, it continues to be an option that we continue to discuss and to think about. So it's not discarded. There has been no decision as of yet to implement it because there's been a lot of careful study of this, and I mean deep study about the kinds of resources and intense effort that would be required to do that over a sustained period of time. And we haven't come to a conclusion that it is the antidote that some say it is. So it's not been discarded. Number two, you said your solution. It's not the United States solution. It's the international community solution to the situation in Syria, signed up to in 2 communiques and a UN Security Council resolution. That's not the United States view or position. That's the international community's view and position. And we believe it's important to keep working through the international community to try to get at a solution here. And what we've said is we want everybody who signed up to that, to include Russia, to meet. All we want them to do is meet their own commitments. Okay. And then you talked about unilateral. So yeah. Can the United States military enforce a no-fly zone by itself? Absolutely it can, but not without cost. And I mean dollars, and not without risk, and not necessarily, at least so far, we've not been able to show that it would have the kind of effectiveness in a sustainable way that some say it would. Again, it doesn't mean that it's been discarded or it's off the table. I'm just saying thus far it hasn't been viewed as the antidote. It
doesn't seem as I mean, communiques, whether they're from Geneva or Vienna or some other European city, and resolutions from the UN or elsewhere are just pieces of paper. they don't actually do anything on their own, particularly when people are unable or unwilling to fulfill the commitments that are outlined in them. So I get the point of these, what the people who are complaining or are criticizing the policy, or what they see as a lack thereof a policy, isn't that you haven't gotten pieces of paper that you can wave and say, you signed up to this, Russia, you signed up to this, Iran, now you have to follow through on it. It's not that. It's that nothing is actually being done on the ground.
Again, I would disagree. Two things. First of all, pieces of paper do matter. I mean, there's a couple of pieces of paper just a few blocks from here. The Constitution, Declaration of Independence, kind of important pieces of paper, kind of matter. These communiques matter. More importantly, that UN Security Council resolution matters, because it isn't just about a piece of paper. It's about commitments that these countries have signed up to do. And all we're asking is that they meet their commitments. And if they would simply just meet their commitments, then we wouldn't be dealing with the whole complexity of the problem that we have. I'm not saying it would solve everything, but it certainly would get us to a better position. And you said nothing's happening on the ground. I couldn't disagree more. An awful lot's happening on the ground.
Aleppo is about to fall.
Yeah. Why?
So, yes,
why? Why is it about to fall, Matt?
Some would say because of the U.S. and Western inaction or inability to do it.
They wouldn't say because the regime continues to surround and strangle the city with support from Russian aircraft in the air.
No, I think that they would, but the reason that's happening is
exactly why it's happening.
Because of the perception that you guys just aren't, meaning you and your allies, aren't willing to do what's necessary to stop this kind of thing. And the other thing is that the pieces of paper in the National Archives down the street are valuable and mean something because people actually acted on them to fulfill their commitments.
Couldn't agree more.
So these communiques and resolutions right now mean nothing because no one has moved to act.
But we want them to, and they need to, and that is what you're exactly right. That's what makes the Constitution and the Declaration matter, and that's why we want these documents to matter the same way, for people to meet their commitments. Couldn't agree more with you on that.
And if they don't,